Welcome back, everyone, to Tarot Journeys with Guy. How's everybody doing? Hope everybody stayed level during this crazy week that we had. Now let's just jump right into it. We're going to take a look at the next week coming up and anything else that we need to look at. Now, what we're dealing with is the shadow war come to the surface, is the best way to put it. And it's out in the open for many of us, and we can see this. Now, if you were paying attention, now a lot of us, we couldn't help but to pay attention to the last week, how much division was created and how much disinformation was thrown out on both sides, right? And I do the air quotations because it's the same people on the top rungs of this that are manipulating it, which is terrible. And it is terrible what's happening in the world in many, many places at once. So, and that's, wow, watching this division has been quite wild. It was kind of interesting. A couple things came out. There was a clip that was circulated around the internet of Netanyahu. It might have, and it was a very recent clip, basically admitting that Israel had become the experimental lab for Pfizer, which we've always known. We've known, and this is what we were saying, that's just one rung of the experiment that's taking place, right? And then the other one, another clip was Henry Kissinger basically admitting, or basically saying that the multicultural experiment in Europe and other places was a failure. That placing people that are of vastly different cultural makeups in a close quarters without any structure or direction or creates pressure zones and creates conflict. This is what we're seeing, right? So it's the perfect setup. This is what we've been talking about for so long, and it's so funny. It's kind of how, I mean, it's not funny. This is deadly serious, because ultimately what it really rests upon is the war against us, the everyday people, the majority, the vast majority of the planet, which is most of us, almost 100%. The real, true 1% of the 1% is really what it is that is creating this. And I mean, there's foot soldiers and all this stuff, right? But pushing us closer and closer to a war scenario, a global conflict. You could see all of the media outlets, Israel at war, all over the world. You can just see which ones are controlled, and right, like especially with the mainstream media, they all have the same sort of narrative script. It's the same on the other side of it as well. They have the same war against the Palestinian people, which this is, man, it's terrible, right? It's really showing us who are the genocidal maniacs in our midst, in our, right in the midst of us. That's a big thing to pay attention to. Who are these people that on both sides of it are pushing this constructed narrative in the sense of coming from the media and coming from the influence of the internet and the mockingbird intelligence run media sources, okay? And this is it, and it goes both ways. So God, it's scary, right? Because yeah, they're really trying to fulfill their plan, and the more that they throw real life violence and oh man, what we're seeing, it becomes harder and harder. It's part of that distraction, right? Because on the back end of it and behind the scenes, they're setting it up to further their aim of a global governance system, a totalitarian global governance system, pushing us, like in the States right now, and it's like trying to push the United States into a war and the Western world into a war, siding with Israel, it like serves that, like that division, but it serves that agenda in the sense of it gives them justification of locking us down, taking away our freedoms, taking away our lifestyle, taking away our children, our young men and women to go fight in wars. Truly what we're seeing, what we see this in every phase of history, it's the shift in power, right? And we're witnessing elements from the old era, the previous era kind of, that have been carried over, sort of playing themselves out. Now what's interesting is that the formation of Israel in 47, 48 really coincides in the same time period of when NATO was formed. This alliance and this global structure that was formed at the end of World War II played out. Same with this partition and this thing in Israel, right? And so and when you look at the history, there's places all over, like India was partitioned, Pakistan and India was partitioned in 47, and it was the same thing with North and South Korea at the end of World War II. And it was right, and the world powers sort of played this kind of chess game, and this is where we see things being fulfilled beyond that. And I mean, now I thought about this whole thing. I thought about the readings that I had been doing, and I think it was maybe it was the last one that I did, the Shadow War update. I'm not sure, but the 3 of Wands kept coming up around sort of like planning, and that is a card of planning. But then I thought about it, and it's just like this thing. It's so obvious, like why they've been letting in so many of these people, and this is what people are talking about, that the deep state are planning an attack. It's pretty obvious, and it's like what that card is actually saying is that they're planning a multi-pronged, multi-front attack. It's not just going to be in the United States. It's probably going to be in multiple places at once. And that's kind of what that card indicates. And I mean, Europe is definitely a good candidate, like obvious. It's very obvious. And it could be in many places, more than 3 at once. We've seen this kind of thing happen before, but on a global scale, right? So I thought about that. I was like, wow, that's wild, right? I mean, it's obvious. So this is what we're dealing with. This is what these guys are doing. The World Economic Forum and the Davos group, cronies, and these death cultists that, that form the IMF and the WHO and the United Nations and everything, have been getting together and trying further to implement their plans, like pushing their agenda, Agenda 2030 up. Could be 2050. This is what we're dealing with. They're continually pushing their agenda. This is part of that plan. Okay, so it's important for people to know. That's how we get ahead of it. That's the information getting out there. That's what changes things. I mean, in the spiritual thing, and this is where we come back to the tarot and the spiritual lesson here, and the spiritual path that the tarot especially brings to us, is that the energetic form of us, the spiritual form of us, is the greater part of us. It's like the physical light versus the light spectrum and the energetic spectrum that we're not able to perceive with our eyes. Right? So it's like this thing of like witnessing the night sky. What you are only seeing is the physical light. That's 0.05% of the total of what you're actually perceiving. That leads us to suspect, and when we start to access our spiritual form, we realize that our consciousness is greater. And so all of this comes out of the spirit first. So that's why it's important. That's why people are drawn to this. This is why we want to know what's going to happen, right? Prophecy is a kind of a funny thing. Kind of works both ways. It can be used negatively and it can be used positively. I definitely come from more of the perspective of the, presenting the infinite nature of reality versus what's written in stone. Okay, that's a big part of it. That's why my readings tend to be different than some other people's, right? That are into predictive or forecasting. You do it as part of it, right? But it comes out differently. It's more like we're trying to present this roadmap and to sort of be on sort of a very clear connection with the intuition so that we can see where the roadmap will lead. And if there needs to be adjustments and changes, then we'll shift, right? And that's what it's for. That's how I see the tarot operating in this. I mean, it operates on many, many levels, and so does the human being, right? And that's where we can affect greater change. I mean, often that kind of change and that kind of thing is unknown to people until they see, right? And everybody will see when it is their time. We can't force anything upon people. It's just the nature of it. Okay, so let's take a look. What else do we need to see? What's going to happen for this week? What do we got to be prepared for? And then we'll just kind of go from there. Let's just check it out. The Three of Swords reversed. Okay, in many ways, it's positive in the sense of being able to sort of move past the pain of the past. Okay, let's just say it has a lot to do with healing the heart. Now, many of us that remember 9/11, for instance, remember what happened there, right? Like, we remember how quick everything got shut down, how quick people jumped on board. It's easy to do so, right? Kind of like what's happened in Israel. It's easy to see. Like, I mean, if people come in and your family gets destroyed, you're more than likely going to want to go and destroy other people, right? That's part of it. That's a normal thing, right? But for us on the outside, that, like, especially in the rest of the world, where we're witnessing like this sort of urge to kind of jump in and fight, it's not happening. People aren't buying it. In fact, they've been caught. Like, there's been so much dialogue around the Great Reset and how they're slowly demolishing the economy and the culture, and they being the globalists, they're caught. People know this. Like, nobody really trusts. And we're seeing a small groups of people, especially like in the States and Europe, Australia, like these small groups of people coming out that are buying into this. Right? So funny how in the States, they're calling, the FBI wants to label all Trump supporters as terrorists, but who are the real terrorists? Right? That's part of this, is to expose that. I mean, but who are they really? I mean, anybody that goes and takes life in that's terrorism. So, and to sit there and go, okay, these guys are terrorists, but these deep state bad actors, these death cultists, these warmongers, they're not genocidal, they're not terrorists as well. Well, yeah, but that's part of it. It's like, and like some of these people that are, like, it has been exposed, right? It's just, oh man. But on both sides, it's really tough. But see, that's the thing. People that have been looking a little bit deeper and sort of recognizing the shadow war aren't so willing to go there. And that's kind of what's happened. That's what's happened, and it's really worked. People are kind of picking up on it. So it's so funny. Underneath the card is like a wish fulfilled. It's a wish fulfillment card. And like, it's like, what's going to happen? Like, they're going to have to pause. They've already kind of like this thing, like there's a pause kind of happening, because there's a schedule that they're trying to fit, but they're pushing ahead. The deep state, they're pushing ahead, but yet not everything's in place to pull it off. A big part of it is the perception. right? So that's the thing. We, like, especially us on our side of it, people that, like I'm saying, the recognizing of the shadow war, it's our time to advance. It's our time to sort of like speak out, push forward, okay? And to sort of like live out the vision, live out what it is that we truly want to see. But this card, like the Knight of Cups and the Nine, or the Knight of Cups and the Nine of Cups, this is really kind of like allowing the heart to really pour forth. This is our time to create the motion, right? And the vision that we've been, like, I've been talking about it for the whole time I've been doing this channel for the last few months. Their plans might be on hold, but we have to kind of keep up on our own, right? So that's a big part of it. It's like, man, people are recognizing, holy cow, we're so being lied to, right? And now the fear of this could happen in my own backyard, like is like the initial attack in Israel, like, whoa, 9/11 styles, right? So it's kind of activated people in a certain way, right? And this is where we see the deep state utilizing, and the elements within the deep state, and I guess the patriots, that's the term we're using right now, like on that side, are utilizing these, they're piggybacking the operation, the agenda that they're pushing. Let's do another one. Take a look. What else do we need to know? So yeah, a little bit of a stilling of, yeah, they want people to jump into this. They want people to really sort of be like, yes, let's jump into a war. Wait a second, deal with your own backyard first. What about the open borders, and what about the invasion that's taking place? I know not all of these guys are here to create havoc, but some of them are. Some of them are paid by this deep state apparatus, this globalist deep state apparatus that we've been talking about. And it's in Europe and in the United States for sure, up in Canada. And I think that if they're going to create an attack, it's going to be in deep state controlled areas. It's not going to be in a place that isn't fully controlled by these guys. And that's this is how they've been doing it forever, right? So we can stop it, just even by like clearly bringing it out into the open, and it can be stopped. That's the nature of freedom, and freedom of speech, and freedom of expression, and the ability to be in that form and to act on it. When you start to shut it down, this is what we start to see. And like, man, they are doing exactly what every communistic, totalitarian, fascistic regime has ever done. And so with this collective amnesia that our civilization, our society has developed, it's easy to get away with it. And that's what they're doing. And they're pushing it. And it's going to take, if they get rid of people's ability to speak out against it and to bring information, it's going to take 20 or 30 years, again, 50 years to catch them, to catch the act, and they can pass it down. And these guys can live comfortably, high on the hog. And that's why we have to be sort of on our toes. We have to be sort of really pay attention. They want us completely distracted so they can get away with all this stuff. Okay. Okay, so these same guys on all sides, there's an active motion underneath right now to get rid of, like, to kill the peace process with Israel and the Palestine and the Muslim Iranian issue, let's say. So it's more with Iran in a lot of ways, okay? But they're actively trying to take this process apart. But peace rests upon the people that they're trying to manipulate. And they kind of know this, right? So what is going to come out more and more is how these NGOs, these private interest groups, these charitable organizations, let's say, like, but it's broad, like we're talking on a big scale, coming out how they're complicit in this kind of infrastructure and creating a lot of this. And I mean, part of it is them groups like here, like in Canada, like people have no clue how they're funding Hamas, essentially, okay, indirectly. And they're giving money and they think it's going to good people here, and it's not. It's going over here. And it's the same, the money that you're funding, you're giving to such and such is going to Vanguard and BlackRock. And that goes directly towards what's going on in the Middle East, right? So people have to realize this, right? Because they are tapping us, they're sucking us dry. And so like people have to they have to be able to sort of detach and kind of go from a clean slate. And this is what I've been learning for the last few years. It's very difficult. It's like forgiveness. It really is. It has a lot to do with forgiving the past, forgiving ourselves. A lot of this we didn't know any better. Super difficult because we've been under this for so long, and we have to kind of be able to sort of see past it, right? So, and I mean, this is what the cards have been so instrumental in, is sort of helping unravel that, okay? And yeah, it's been a long process for me. My life has definitely been sort of revolved around waking people up, especially like the second part of my life up until now. And it's a long process. It's going to be a lot longer, and we have to be prepared. But like, see, this is this thing. It's like, don't let any of this ruin your that vibe, the inspiration, the dream, the hope that comes from your ability to act on this, on your ability to see it to come forward, to accept it. Right? The star card is rarely negative, right? So the star card, when it's hidden, is like the hidden hope, the hidden inspiration here. Gonna get some good news this week, I guess, in some ways. Page of Cups represents a message. So, and I think it has a lot to do with what we're talking about. I really hope that things stop in Israel. Like, just they stop and realize, like, okay, that's enough, okay, or whatever, right? That's kind of what I'm hoping for. People are amazing, and often when people are at such loggerheads like this, that are like enemies, I guess. Sometimes and often they find that they're closer friends than they are against each other. And this is the great vision. This is the great dream. And we have to be able to move on into the next era to be able to release all of the fear-based hang-ups, everything from the previous era. We have this great opportunity, and to sort of move into a much more enlightened phase of civilization. It may not seem like it, okay? But that's part of the dream. And it could happen. It could happen overnight. It really could happen overnight. I hope everybody enjoyed. That's enough for today. So if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button, leave a like on the video, and wherever you are, please take care. And I hope to see you on the next one. Bye-bye.